For the past 11 months, I've been saying that Deal Machine's the only data provider that's really doing anything new that I think is cool or exciting or going to help really add to the bottom line for those of us that are in real estate. But PropStream just dropped a pretty massive update. Let's take a look at what I like and what I don't. If you're not familiar with PropStream, they're pretty much like the go-to data provider for folks in real estate. You can see things like ownership information, if people have equity, and pull all kinds of lists to potentially market to see if somebody's interested in selling. You can even do things like run comps without the MLS, which depending on the market is either super accurate or a little meh. So PropStream dropped this massive update where they totally redid their filter interface. And if I'm being totally transparent, at first I was like, this sucks, right? It's more clunky. It just feels a little bit less user intuitive. I've got to scroll through this thing or click through the options. I don't know. General sentiment between myself and the folks I chatted with in CCF was like, this kind of feels like a downgrade, until I started digging into it a little bit. So right off the bat, something that I absolutely love, you can punch in a market and it will give you all of their stock lists, how many records there are that they have in those. This is super cool. In the past, I would pay my wonderful assistant Jennifer to go in and just run all kinds of counts for me. Hey, how many senior owned properties are there? How many vacants are there? How many cash buyers are there? This gives you a really interesting 10,000 foot view of what's going on in this market and are there potential opportunities here? For instance, if I was in Indianapolis and I had a super small budget, I would want to add in an equity filter to make sure people can afford to sell to me or list with me and still compensate me, right? But there are 18,000 failed listings. Those are people that tried to sell their house. It didn't work. They might still want to sell and often do at a substantial discount. Can also see how many are owned free and clear or in pre-foreclosure or in a probate status. You can even see things like upside down. That's super interesting. I think that's a metric that'll be interesting to see should prices ever decline, how fast that happens. There's two other lists you can now pull through PropStream that I don't believe you could pull prior. I hadn't seen them. If I go into liens, one of these is something I've actually gotten from county. So this is a new niche list for you guys. So if I go into liens and I click on any and I go over to include, it opens up this menu with other options. So the one you can pull that I've historically been doing that I don't think you could do through PropStream before, I've been getting mine through county, is the mechanics liens. So I can see in Indianapolis, there are 496 places that have mechanics liens on it. So somebody hired somebody to do work and then couldn't afford to pay them when it was done. Note to self, with this data, you might learn things about people in your market that you're like, oh, but they were just at their RIA claiming they're successful. Why did they not pay their roofer? So if I click on this one here and I go over to lien details, I could see that somebody basically ordered $5,000 worth of materials back in August from, it looks like, a supply house and just stiffed them. If I look at another one here and go over to lien details, I can see somebody hired, looks like a handyman or construction company, and stiffed them on $5,000. Do another one here. Over to lien details. If I go over to this one and look at lien details, this one is wild. It is a $116,000 construction lien where it looks like they skipped out on their restoration company on a $1 million+ home. The reason why this is important is if somebody has a property that needs work that they're committing to paying somebody, having that person do and then not paying them indicates A, cash management probably isn't great, and B, there might be more that's wrong with that property. So if you're not hitting mechanics liens, definitely give it a try. The other one that I think is new that I think is worth exploring just in your market is the tax exempt status. So you can look at all of these particular niches, in markets that don't have great senior data, for instance, you might try this filter instead. Now, one thing I do want to throw out in my experience, Deal Machine has the best senior data. Of the main lists that I pull, I think like 8 out of 9 we get out of PropStream, but we're definitely getting the seniors with equity out of Deal Machine. They have actual demographic data, whereas in my experience, PropStream's data is more just like long-term owners. But you might try this and see if that's not more accurate for you. I should have done like a good news, bad news sandwich. So like good feature, bad feature, good feature. PropStream added this like PropStream intelligence thing that basically looks at MLS photos and tells you what kind of shape they think the property's in. My gut tells me this might be probably gimmicky. Like a lot of things that have AI attached to them end up just being like, yeah, it doesn't really do much. It's worth noting their property condition is based off of that. So it's very different than Deal Machine's property condition, which actually comes from the county assessors. Now, they had this foreclosure factor that was a brand new feature that I was literally exploring live, and I had to reshoot the entire video because I got more disappointed the more that I played with it. So it basically says from a scale of 1 to 100, how likely they think somebody is to get foreclosed on in the next 12 months. Could definitely be an interesting list to pull, right? It's like pre-foreclosure. However, it doesn't appear to work. So when I was running some searches on it, I couldn't find anything that was wrong with several of the properties they had listed. Like they didn't have any liens. Some of them even had really recent mortgages. So I don't think they're getting like 30-day late notices from the credit bureau. And the reason I say that, a lot of the ones I looked at had no mortgage on it at all. How is something likely to get foreclosed upon if there's no mortgage? So I couldn't shoot this video, the first version of it, and be like, wow, neat feature that then doesn't work for you guys. So I'm going to pass that feedback over to PropStream. Maybe there's something I'm doing wrong. I don't think so. I clicked on the buttons and that was what it gave me. But that's something I would be very cautious about putting real dollars behind because it seems like something's broken in the AI there. Maybe that's a good thing that our robot overlords are still making mistakes. If you're feeling like me and you're like, new interface is a little bit clunkier, I totally get it. I've done another video on this, but I highly recommend that you set up saved searches for the lists that you typically pull. That way you literally go in, build out what you want, and you don't have to go through kind of this clunky menu process every time to pull your lists. As I've mentioned on other videos, I'm only sharing updates with you guys that impact the vendors that I'm paying for and generating a profit off of. So while overall, like I love to see that they're trying new things, they're adding new features, I do think those 2 new list options are huge for you guys because I've been using them, but I've been getting that data locally. So it's not really something I could share with you. I think it's totally worth exploring. And jury's still out on the whole AI aspect of it. Thank you guys for watching today's YouTube video and hanging out with me. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe. Otherwise, I'll talk to you guys next time.